Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of Hiring and Inspiring. Today's guest is Jason Loft. Jason is a sales professional, a legal professional as well, and also a podcaster in a recent development of his in his career. So we connected a short while back. I know he's been doing some really interesting stuff recently. He's made a big sort of career transition, so to speak. So looking forward to catching up with him, finding out how this transition he's made most recently, and also catching up and a little bit learning about his journey and reflecting on his prior work experience and how it's all led him to where he is today. So, Lofty, with that introduction, mate, welcome to the show. How are you getting on?
Thank you. Yeah, very good, very good. Like I said, a bit of a change, and it's nice. It feels like my actual office isn't as nice as the backdrop here, but it looks like I've got a nice corner office. But I'm working. That'll be the goal, is work toward that corner office. Yeah.
We can talk about some of those goals in a bit, mate. The big news, as I said, is you switched up your career earlier this year. A good few months back now, transitioning from working in the sales industry, in the electrical industry, to now working sales capacity for a legal firm, which is two very different industries. Let's be honest. How have you found that transition so far?
Yeah, it was a big, because I sort of went, I guess I've been in sales in one way or another since I was 18 or probably 15. And this one, last 6 years, was all about, it was electrical wholesaling. So it was still business to business, dealing with tradies every day. But you're selling products, and then
Yeah.
selling professional services. It was a big, it was a big transition. I was more nervous about it because I just had never done it. I'd never got out there and sold. Like normally I've got something I can show people, like there's something physical that we're
Okay. Yeah.
giving, whereas this was all ethereal, and it's also the law in itself. Like what you're selling to me is certainty. Like people come to you, generally we're in corporate law, what I'm doing. People are coming to you when they're in a bit of a crisis. And so the actual sale is more just giving them certainty that, hey, we're going to hold your hand through this, and we're the right people to do that. So I was very nervous because I guess I sold myself in the interview that no, it's fine. I can do this transition, no worries, because it's all people. First few weeks, big learning curve, because I obviously had to understand there's a lot more restrictions in, you can't, it's not necessarily overpromise or anything, but you got to be careful in setting people's expectations to say, hey, you are in a bit of legal strife here, and it's not exactly like I can tell you we'll sort it out, but there's no guarantees that'll happen because you're dealing with disputes between humans. But now that I've been doing it sort of a few months, I've realized, which is nice, people, like sales is just all about building a relationship and understanding people and hopefully adding value to people and finding out what's their actual like pain points and how can you help them solve that. And in the law, I mean, that's, even then it can be ambiguous. Like a dispute might be over the builder hasn't paid on time, or whatever it might be, the extension keeps getting delayed, things like that. There's always people underlying it. And I find it's just about giving people a chance to vent, get their story out, and then I can go, okay, now take a deep breath. Here's your rights and your obligations, and here's essentially what we can sell you, which is either we'll help you go to court, or let's get this person to the negotiation table. For me, it's all like my brain just works at looking at what's the next product that's going to help them solve their issue. And even in the law, it's still that way. But yeah, they're both just people, and that's what gave me a lot of confidence, because I realized, okay, people, whilst it's professional service and everything, it's still going to be the same people, and they've got the same needs, wants, desires. And as long as you can tap into that, you can do well.
Interesting, mate. So talk to me a little bit more about the actual the day-to-day of the new role then. So what you've touched on a few things there about, you're still helping people, you're selling more of a service, but how does it work? Are you, proactively looking to find clients and sell your firm's, professional service and then guiding them through the process? How does it all work? If there was like I don't know, a typical day, what does it look like?
Yeah, I initially for me, because I'm sort of in a unique position, I'll be admitted as a solicitor hopefully in about a month's time, actually. So I'm, I
Yeah.
guess, learning the law of how to deliver the service at the same
Mm,
time. So for me, the first
gotcha.
month,
Yeah.
I just said to them, let's pick one area, which was debt recovery. Um, 2 days a week, I was just head down, bum up, like filing claims, learning how to write claims, doing letters, actually learning the brunt of it. So then the other 3 days, I could confidently go out and talk to businesses. And it was, for me, a bit of cold calling. Um,
Yeah.
the sort of, the way I do it, I like to start with a cold email. I actually like to research people beforehand to go, do they fit like my ideal client base? For us, we do a lot of high volume, um, big corporations or even government departments who need a fair bit of debt recovery. So it was doing the pre-qualifying, and then it's about. I looked at what's a problem most of these people would face. Fortunately, when you're looking at government departments, you can actually do the research and find out they've got annual reports, so you can literally look at,
Yeah.
oh, how much bad debts did they have last year? So that's actually was my process. Was I like to just research people in depth, and then if they fit my ideal client profile, um, then I find out, okay, what are the problems that I can see? What are problems I know similar clients have faced? And then what solutions can I offer? Because
Yeah.
for me, before going for the ask of, hey, can we do your debt recovery or can we have business from you? I look at it as having solutions in the bank. Like I've helped them solve maybe two or three problems of added value,
Mm,
added value, added value. And then it's sort of, hey, by the way, we have this service that you guys might be able to enjoy. And I find
yeah.
it's probably a 6 week process to go from start to finish. But generally, if I've narrowed in on a client that, hey, I really want to get their business, um, yeah, it's usually nothing's a certainty, but yeah,
Yeah.
if you actually care about getting their business and the reason you care about getting their business is to help them, I think they pick up on that
Mm,
because it's not just, hey, I'm nagging you. Hey, can I have the business? Can I do some debt recovery for you? It's, hey, did you
mm,
know we have a process that we can do? Did you know we've got lawyers who have done this for 20 years and they can come train your staff on improving debt
yeah.
recovery like the processes you do? Um, yeah, it's never asking until it's at the point they usually just offer it.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I really like that. How you're not just sort of calling up and then, asking what their problems are or asking, for the business. You're calling them up already knowing what the problems they have,
Mm.
and then you're also calling them up with the solution already.
Well, that's
And
yeah, and
yeah.
even if it doesn't happen in that conversation, I think that's for me what sales has always been. It's being over prepared and showing your clients that you care enough. Um,
Yeah.
my missus gives me stick sometimes because I do a lot of research before I go
Yeah.
into a business. But as far as I'm concerned, like if I want them to genuinely know I care, I would research them, find out their backstory. Why'd they go into business? Why'd they start this? What's the industry issues they might have? Um, yeah, we discussed it when you were talking about recruiting. It's showing them that you care enough to do all that research up front.
It's very much not a sort of spray and pray approach. Then you're not just calling up anyone and everyone and
Nah,
hoping something sticks. You're really getting strategic in this role. Like find the ideal customers, get under their skin, learn the business, and then offer the solution.
yeah, and then now it's been probably 4 or 5 months. Now I've sort of got systems in place, I guess, to do that. And that's why I like a lot of your content. It's sort of
Mm,
Mondays. Okay, you need to be doing the cold email, but it is a pre-researched email, but it's 10 of them to reach out to 10 potentials and then put that in a sequence. So next week,
yeah.
if they haven't responded, hey, quick follow up. Then if they haven't, hey, give them a call. and it's sort of now it's in a
Yeah.
sequence. But yeah, I can't stand the call it the shotgun approach, which is just play a numbers game, which I have. Look, people have told me, I just
Yeah.
play the numbers game, just keep pulling. I'm like, I'm terrified. Like for someone who's been in sales my whole life, I hate rejection. I hate dealing with the the
Okay.
no's and stuff. I'm used to it, but I still hate it. So I go out of my way to avoid that by narrowing down on who's the ideal client and let's show them why we're the ideal solution.
Hmm. I like what you said about the process as well, by the way. Like so much of sales is having the right processes and habits and systems in
Mm.
place, because it's what we do. You don't necessarily, maybe a bit different in your profession, but like so much of it is, you're not always the sort of smartest people about. You're not always the, you don't always have to be the best talker. Or if you just have the right systems and processes in place where you can just consistently get whatever it is, those emails out, the calls out, whatever, the content out, and you can back that up consistently. That's how. And it sounds like you're implementing those systems and already seeing results, which is,
Yeah.
mate, it's great to hear.
Mm.
I want to touch upon the change itself. Earlier this year we spoke about how your background before this role in the legal industry was working for, in the electrical wholesale, the electrical industry. What brought about this change? What made you sort of switch up careers at this point in your life?
The career change was always going to be planned. I've had businesses since I was 18. Um, Me and my wife had several businesses through our 20s, and then we had one of the businesses. I think we ended up with 7 franchises at the time, and one of those franchisees tried to sue us, and it ended up we won it and everything, but it was quite a legal minefield, and that's when I
Yeah.
at the time was going through. My father was blowing the whistle. He was in politics, and he was going through some legal issues for that, and so I decided I'm going to study law because I can just see the benefit. One, for business owners, how difficult it's becoming to navigate. There's so much legislation they have to be around, particularly in construction industry. And two, just because of the personal impact of what happened to my father. So
Yeah.
I actually took a job in the electrical wholesaling as a business development purely because I just wanted a 9 to 5 job while I studied law.
Yeah.
And then I had a 5-year
Yeah.
plan. Okay,
Okay.
once that's done, I'm going to go be a lawyer. That had been put on the hold, but my son's nonverbal autism, and we were living in a regional town at the time, not a lot of resources and support for it. So earlier this year, the opportunity sort of came, and we made the decision. Okay, we're going to try and get him into a good school down in Brisbane. And that happened to coincide with me finishing my degree. So it was sort of, yeah, let's take the leap, move to the big city, and I'll test my
Yeah.
skills out. One, as a lawyer, but two, yeah, combining those skills to. I didn't just want to be a lawyer because it, for me, was a waste of sort of 15 years sales experience. So I,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
presented
Yeah. Yeah.
myself as what if I can do a bit of both? What if yes, I want to learn the law, but also what if I can bring clients, which obviously every law firm's keen on someone who can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, mate. So it sounds like it's been in the works for a long time. You've been planning
Mm.
it, and now it's happening. Now you're doing it. What are some of the ambitions? Where do you want to take it? What are some of the goals? What do you hope to
I
achieve? I guess in the
I
next few
realized I
years.
kind of I guess fell in love with not just the electrical industry, but the construction industry as a whole. It underpins
Yeah.
so much of the economy. Like, and I don't think people
Yeah.
realize how important it is that thriving construction industry. Um, yeah, it means so many things are sort of taken care of in the economy. We look at housing and everything at the moment, the shortages. So I've quickly realised now that I'm in learning the law that I'm going to get, I guess my specialty is going to be in the construction industry focus, just helping business owners. to navigate. I did a presentation the other day. I don't have them here, but it was sort of a table, and we lined up all the legislation that even doesn't matter if you're a sparky or a plumber or a builder who's just going to go out on his own. It was like a boardroom table size and about sort of 2 foot high of printed legislation that, by the way, you should know. You should know all this, because if you trip up, ATO, ASIC, or someone's going to get you for it. And I was like, that's
Right.
when I realized, okay, now I know I'm in the right thing, because my job as a construction lawyer, once admitted, is going to be just helping these guys get through all that, navigate it, understand it.
Yeah.
And if they do get in trouble, protect them from,
Mm.
the difficulties of it. Because there's so much, it's such a struggle being in business for yourself, and it shouldn't be made more difficult. But unfortunately, just the way society's gone the last 20, 30 years, it's becoming more and more, it's just only the big guys can sort of survive, because they have teams of lawyers on retainer. I thought, if I can do my part, even if it's only, you can help 20, 40 businesses at a time, at least you can do that. And it's quite rewarding for me putting that, putting my background, and I guess my mates. I've got 2 brothers who are chippies, brother-in-law who's a sparky, another brother-in-law who's chippy. Like, everyone around me is in a blue collar trade business. And so I'm, in a different industry, but definitely have my roots firmly planted back in construction.
And you've also run a couple of businesses, right, yourself, so that you can draw on that experience, and like what you say, the legal battle you had back in the day, it's now all coming together, sort of thing. You can pull on that experience of running a business to know what your clients are going through, say, to really understand that. You're pulling on the sales experience that you've had, and you're pulling the legal degree, and you put it together, mate. So it sounds like this is the plan has all come together. These things will all come out, don't they?
Yeah, and it's been pretty cool. Some by, like, obviously I studied the degree on purpose, and a lot of the things were me making a plan, executing it, doing it. But then other things, it's only in looking back. And when you go for admission, you have to make this disclosure document and say, like, here's all the things that may adversely affect me. And obviously, if there's court cases, things like that, I've been through, I had to list them. And it's as I'm listing them, I'm going, oh, I was kind of, you can see I was being prepared to take on a role like this, because it's all those things, culminating into, hopefully, what's a unique and good, litigator.
No. And mate, early this year, you launched your own podcast as well, Lofty Learns. Give it a little shout out. How's that all been going so far?
Yeah, good. It was, I guess, for a bit of fun. 2 things. I moved to a brand new city, so having to build out a network. And I remember hearing, I don't know if it was Gary V, Jordan Peterson, there was one of those guys, they said, might have even been Rogan, like, if you do a podcast, it's such a good excuse to meet people. 1, give them a chance to shout out their business. And 2, like, I listen to them constantly, audiobooks or podcasts, and I thought, well, that's how I learned so many things. Why don't I just start doing it myself? Because I want to keep learning. And I find it's kind of cool doing it. Like, so many people have a podcast these days, but it's just fun watching it slowly grow. And you see, every guest you get on, like, they've got sort of 10 or 20 people in their network that'll definitely watch and definitely want to see it. And you can see how, if you keep doing this, and for me, it's not about money, it's not about anything, it's about, I want to try and meet a new person every week, learn whatever they're in. Generally, I'm doing a lot of business owners or people who are hitting goals in their career. And just extract, what are they doing well? What habits are they learning? Twofold, selfishly, so I can take some of those ideas. But also to build out a network, like, and that's how we're doing this one, to go, like, a rising tide will lift all boats. So I know for a fact, if anyone needs salesmen, I know I'm sending them to you to do the recruitment. Yeah, and I think,
Appreciate it, mate.
well, those little things, like you just build out this, you can build quite a cool network of the podcast world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, you talk about, you mentioned it a few times there, you just love learning. Your podcast is called Lofty Learns. That
Mm.
sort of thirst for knowledge and learning is clear, it's evident in your own personality. Where do you think that sort of comes from?
It was, I reckon I was 20, it was when I got sued and realized
Yeah.
I certainly didn't know it all. I didn't get enough lawyers involved at the time because I thought I'm a smart guy, I can outmaneuver this.
Can figure
And I
this out.
listened, I think it was Tom Bilyeu at the time, he's on Impact Theory. And he said he had a switch in his brain when he was about 23, 24, where he realized he doesn't need to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, he doesn't want to be anymore because he knows if he is, he's in the wrong room. And when you switch your
Yeah.
ego from, oh, I don't have all the answers, but I'm the kind of guy who can soak up knowledge and get all the answers for you, it it just opens up your world dramatically. And yeah, so I just had a switch, and like even naming it that is more, it's as a reminder to myself that yeah, I'm 32 now and I'll keep getting older, and as you learn more about the law, technically you get smarter and wiser and should have more answers for your client. But I wanted something that no matter what, like my identity is almost tied to learning, because I know as soon as you stop, and I see it all the time, you see people who stop and they're suddenly, I'm the smartest person in the room. You can see very quickly, no, you're not, because you stopped reading, you stopped learning, you stopped taking in new
Yeah.
information. And if you're not doing that, I mean, it's scientific actually. You start dying. Um, so yeah, that first it was making that cognitive switch from hearing that podcast, going, oh, like imagine if that's your identity is actually, so when you're wrong about something and when something doesn't go right or you get the answer wrong, you actually get a boost like in energy, in endorphins, in the
Yeah.
hormones, because you're like, oh man, I learned something. Like it's just a better mindset, to be honest. And I've found, yeah, the amount, it's only sometimes you realize, oh, I've learned a lot since I started that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how often that sort of mistake, or just any sort of mistake, it starts with your own ego being the problem. I always can come back to that every time I sort of look back at my past and be like, right, I messed up there, or I could have done that better. It's always my own ego that was the problem. Like, for instance, like you said about, um, when you took on that, legal situation, you kind of like, yeah, I can deal with this, no problem. I'm a smart guy, and I can identify that in myself as well. Like, I remember, just on the topic of like learning, I remember I finished up university and I was like, yep, I think that's me done with learning. I'm never, yeah, I'm finished. And looking back, you just, how wrong was that? And
Mm.
like I said, I can always go back to the main problem being your own ego. And if you can drop that ego and realize that, I'm far from finished. There's always things I can be learning. Any sort of profession you're in, you're never finished. And I think, as you say, about if you can just adopt that mindset of just lifelong learning,
Mm.
you're really onto a winning formula,
Yeah.
mate. I wanted to, you were saying about your, you picked up on a couple of things from a podcast actually while we're talking about it. What have been some of maybe podcasts that have been, sort of inspirational, let's say, in your journey? Where have you picked up a lot of knowledge? Because I'm always keen to know where,
I,
other people are getting info from.
yeah. I started, I guess the ones that even to this day, I reckon it would have been 2015, 2016 when I started listening to them. Rogan, I was listening to Joe Rogan back then,
Yeah.
purely like he can be a meathead and he's a comedian and stuff, but when he has guests he's just by sheer repetition doing 3 or 4 podcasts a week, he's become the best interviewer in the world because he just lets his guests speak. So that was a huge one for me. And then Impact Theory was another one. Tom Bilyeu, he built his own Quest Nutrition, $1 billion company. And I sort of started following him because I saw how well he'd done as a startup. And then he's gotten into more mindset, positive thinking, getting your mindset right. Tim Ferriss, the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, like all of them, I've sort of narrowed, I guess, a bit lately. And I try and I look at it like dieting almost. Not dieting, but like during the year, like if I need to knuckle down, and when I was finishing all my degree and everything, and I knew that complacency comes in, like, okay, I've been doing this 4 years. I don't need to study. I'm just tick and flick. I'll get through the final semester. And I could see, that's not gonna, like, you didn't get this far by doing that. So I sort of tuned my Spotify playlist to go, I know who I need, which is Jocko Willink, David Goggins, people who are like, you think you're there, mate,
get you fired up. Get you fired up every day.
Get you fired up and get you going, no matter how good you think you are. You need to just keep reminding yourself there's someone out there working harder than you, someone trying to get there quicker, sort of thing. And I keep a daily journal, I guess, for that exact purpose, to know what am I facing in life personally or in business. So what sort of content, and that's the beauty now of having so much content out there. What's going to be the most beneficial for that situation? Because it's sort of like, if you're going to go something, you need short energy, like you have a bit of sugar, you have a bit of glucose, you have a bit of energy drink. But it's certainly not something that you do if you're trying to have sustained long-term energy. And I look at the content I consume the same way to, like, what am I trying to solve? Usually it's what problems am I trying to solve? And which people do I know have faced those problems before? Chances are they've done a podcast on it now. And then go find that sort of tidbit, that snack, and eat it. And there's so much time in the day that can be used for that. And that's what I learned when I was studying, is like doing the dishes, doing all those chores that sometimes people think of as a chore. I relish now because I'm like, oh, sick. Like loading the dishwasher is 20 minutes. If I listen to a podcast that's an hour long on 1.5 speed, I can get through a whole podcast. Like, imagine how much learning I can do while I load the dishwasher.
Nice. Good little mindset switch, that. I think it's interesting, like, just on podcasts, it's sort of, I think what the old thing used to be, like, you become the sort of sum of the 5 friends that you spend most time with, or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it goes. So you want to be quite conscious about who you spend, the 5 people you spend the most time with, because you're most likely to get their similar opinions and sort of be accustomed to them quite a lot. That has probably changed a bit now. You now become the sum of, not for everyone obviously, but probably the 5 podcasts you listen to most. Because that, if you're surrounding yourself with a certain podcast that has a certain sort of view or a twist on things, it really can influence the way you go about your life. And I don't think it should be underestimated.
No, I think it's dangerous.
Sorry, go on.
No. Well, it is. Like, my wife jokes about it. She's like, are you talking to your buddy right now? Because I've got Tim Ferriss or someone in my ear. And I'm like, well, I kind of am.
But it is, like you say, it's a diet. Like, that content diet is almost replicable. What you're putting in your body in terms of food. One thing, just to pick up on, you said just earlier about the journaling. I hope you don't mind me asking this, and you don't mind sharing, because it's something I've always hearing that the most sort of successful people and CEOs, the one thing they all have in common is they journal every day. It's a habit I haven't necessarily personally been able to implement in my own life, but it's something, because I always hear about it, I think there must be something to it. What kind of benefits have you seen by doing that, and what kind of things do you journal, if you don't mind me asking? and any tips to even get that get that habit moving.
Yeah, I think it was a Stoic. It was Marcus Aurelius, or it was Ryan Halliday books I was listening to, and that's where every single one of the Stoics kept a daily journal. And I think Marcus Aurelius himself, it was not meant for public consumption. He wrote a journal because he wanted his kids to have something. Um, so that for
Yeah,
me gave me the purpose, because I was like, if I could leave something for my young fella, it would be a roadmap of how I managed to deal with the chaos that is just being a human being. Um, so I started literally just, mine was just writing. So whatever was coming into my head, I was writing it out. And I was like, oh, you realize quickly some of this stuff is just stupid. But you only realize that when you physically put it pen to paper, and you sort of go, why
yeah.
am I even thinking like that? Like, I know that's not the
Okay,
way
yeah,
to look at this problem. And then because I've done it for so long now, I refined it down to habit, because I realized that Atomic Habits book, like if you don't do it on a daily thing, you don't make it recurring, you'll just end up giving it away. And so I
yeah,
actually wrote, like, writing out what does my ideal life look like, which is a Stoic thing, and what are the top 5 priorities. Like if I scored myself a 10 out of 10 on these top 5 things, which for me, and I don't mind sharing because it's similar, should be for most people, it was health and well-being at number one, um, Courtney and Corby, my wife and son, and those ones were flipped for a long time until I think someone actually said to me, like, do you realize if you don't take care of your health, you're going to be useless to your wife and son? And I was like, oh, like that was a massive shift. So I had to rewrite them. So it was number one, health and well-being, and I literally say it to myself, without that, I can't take care of Courtney and Corby. And then number 3 was financial freedom's always been a big thing for me. Number 4, self-sufficiency. And number 5 for me, it had been for the last 5 years, literally becoming a lawyer. And so
yeah,
every morning I actually wrote out a 365-day. I got Courtney to make it for me, and it had those things on it. And then I would write every morning, what is one habit I can do today to get like my health and well-being in order? What's one habit I can do to make sure Courtney and Corby, we have a good relationship? Play with my son, I have a good, healthy relationship with my wife. And I did that for every category. And so it's kind of awesome now, because the beauty of journaling for me is you can go back and I score myself before I go to bed on these categories out of 10. What was today? So I've got this algorithm now, which I can go like, when did I have a 10 out of 10? Never had 10 out of 10 in all categories, but when did I have
yeah,
a really high score? And what did I do that day? And turns out I got up, I jumped in the pool, I did a body workout, then spent a bit of time with Courtney before Corby got up, then
yeah,
played with Corby before school. Then I got to work and I killed it at work, and I followed like what I need to do at work. And then I got home and I did a bit of archery and did a bit of jiu-jitsu for the self-sufficiency. And then at night, I made sure I got my study done. I watched the lecture, and I can, like, when I'm having the down days and like the sick days and when you just don't feel it, you can scroll back through your journal and see, hey, dum, like you've got a roadmap here and this is what you should be doing. And so the
yeah,
power of that is extraordinary. Um, and that for me, now I've got books and books and books that because I've been doing it every day for about 8 years, that if there's nothing else, and hopefully there's a lot else, I'll leave my son, but if there's nothing else, he'll have those books, which are gold, because for me, it's the
yeah.
algorithm for my ideal life is literally laid out there.
So I love that, mate. That's, as you say, it's gold. You've always got something to come back to. You know,
Mm,
as in if they didn't necessarily go to plan, right? Let's go back to that. Let's figure out, compare it to a day that did go well. What went right?
yeah.
But mate, it kind of leads me on really nicely actually to my sort of final question, which is around the idea of success to you. And I think you've kind of already answered it there with those 5, let's say, pillars of
Mm.
things that you really care about and that mean a lot to you. I'm going to twist it up a little bit. My question: how in success to you is those things, right? But how important is success? Sort of, because I think about success for me is like I've got the things I care about in my life, like similar things to you, but I've learned it's not necessarily smashing it on all of those levels. It's success to me is doing my best at those things and learning to be okay if one of those things drops off.
Mm.
Is that what does success mean to you? I guess is it trying to just smash all of those 5 pillars and make sure everything's in line, or is it more learning to be okay when things necessarily don't go to plan?
Yeah, it's the other side of it. It's accepting, which is the stoic philosophy. I think it's the stoic prayer. It's to accept the things you cannot control and to focus on the things you can. Um, that's essentially serenity. Like, no, and that for me, it makes things when things don't go well, particularly at work, when you miss out on the sale or it doesn't go well, the client, how we're handling a matter for them. Um, it's an inner peace to know I've got, for me, those 2 people waiting for me at home, and I've got my health. The other things aren't, they're not number 1 and 2 for a reason. And so success is being able to remind myself that no matter what, if it all falls apart, I've still got those 2 things, which means I've really found my ideal life. And I think that's what
Yeah.
Stoicism was so important in doing. Was it's not about the happiness, it's not about the achievement or knocking down the goal or anything. Like, those things happen through habit. But if you can wake up every day and know and be focused on at least working towards that ideal life, that to me is success. So weirdly, because I'm always striving for what's the next thing, and it's only as I'm saying it to you, I'm thinking I've kind of, I know I'm on the pathway anyway. And it's probably not going to be, there's no destination. It's just, you
Well,
keep
that's it. The
going.
pathway is this is something I've learned. The pathway is the real, like the journey is the real goal,
Mm,
because when you get to the end result, there's always another goal that you're focused on.
yeah.
So for me, like the happiness comes from the pursuit rather than the end goal. Is something I've really only realized in the last, I don't know, year or so. Like,
Yeah.
you're never finished, and there's never like an end where, like, right, when I hit that point, whatever, everything will be perfect. Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So learn to strive and enjoy the pursuit rather than the end goal.
I think the way you're saying it too, the founding fathers in America, I don't know who said it. It was not recently I heard it. But they said the founding fathers wrote, you have the right to the pursuit of happiness. You don't have the right to happiness. It was the right to the pursuit of it. And it was I was
Yeah,
like, that's exactly right. Because to be honest, the right to happiness doesn't really exist, but the pursuit of it. But when they wrote that document of every person has those inalienable rights, and one of them is the pursuit of happiness, I was like, oh, yeah,
yeah,
they knew something back then as well.
yeah, yeah. It's so good, and I've even started to like set myself, like, the goals I set myself now are so like far away in the future, and things like, because everything, the enjoyment you get is more in the build up to something than the actual thing.
Yeah,
So, like, I've started booking holidays like a year in advance just so I can enjoy the sort of build up to
anticipation. Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah. And when I realized that, I was just like, that is like crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that. That was really enjoyed that conversation. You shared a heap of wisdom there that I know, for one, I'll be listening back and learning from, and anyone else who listens to, I think, will gain a lot. So I really appreciate you doing that, mate. And it's great to see like we spoke about, things sort of coming together for you in your personal life and this new venture going really well. So long may it continue. Lofty, thank you very
Thanks,
much, and
man.
let's play and stay in touch.
Cheers.